You are listening to Viewpoints from Place Cloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
If you weren't looking for it, it would be possible to walk directly by the ferryman's seat. Essentially, it's just a piece of stone that's stuck in the wall of a restaurant. And it's not something that you would notice unless you wanted to look at it. We have absolutely no idea how old it actually is, but it's connected specifically to the old movements back and forth across the river in the city of London. There was only one way in and out of London up until the 18th century, and that was London Bridge. London Bridge was also covered in houses. It was very, very narrow, so it was difficult to get in and out all the time. That means that anyone who had a little bit of extra cash, if they wanted to get across the river, would not go by the bridge, but would go by ferry. So there were a number of intrepid people who would just row little boats back and forth and across the Thames all day long. And the ferryman's seat, we think, was just a place where they would come and kick it when they weren't actually moving people back and forth. The reason they were moving people back and forth, especially around where the ferryman's seat, though, is mostly for fun. The Globe Theater is just around the corner from here, but initially the major things that were happening here on the South Bank were bear baiting and bull baiting. There were two separate theaters for this, and indeed they were called theaters at the time and looked almost essentially like the Globe does now. So they were large, round buildings with an open bit in the center. And early modern people really enjoyed watching animals tear each other to bits. It's something that we would be really disgusted by now. And it's difficult to even talk about it because when we say baiting, what it would mean is that a bear or a bull, depending on which theater you are in, would be brought into the arena and a pack of dogs would be set on it. People would then bet on whether or not the dogs or the bear or the bull would win. What is interesting about this, other than the fact that early modern people were apparently pretty bloodthirsty, is that this was not seen as particularly different from theater writ large. So there wouldn't be a huge difference in the minds of early modern period between going to the bear baiting and going to see a Shakespeare play. One way or another, you were going out to see something that was like kind of risque. People thought that theater was a little bit morally dubious and dodgy, and they sort of felt the same way about bear and bull baiting. Sure, it's something that you could go see, but it wasn't particularly something that was tasteful. So, the people who would be getting ferries back and forth to this area are oftentimes people of means who had the money in order to go out to things like the theater, but also who didn't necessarily want to be seen doing it. To go over London Bridge also represented a chance to be seen by thousands and hundreds of your fellow citizens, right? So as you're moving through the neighborhood that was London Bridge, people would clap eyes on you. If you're going down to do something dodgy, like bet on whether or not a bear is about to die, you might not want any other well to do neighbors to know that. The solution is you hire a ferry to move you back and forth. It's sort of essentially equivalent to the difference between getting public transport now, like grabbing the tube in London, and getting a black cab somewhere. Ferries were the black cabs of the early modern world. And this is the equivalent of a taxi rank. The ferryman would kick it here while his rich customers were going and doing something kind of outrageous. So you might miss this. And in fact, you might miss the fact that there were bears and bulls and all sorts of violent things going on in the early modern period down here in London. But for those who are paying attention, you'll know that not everything in London is always savory in character. And just because something is historical doesn't mean that it's genteel.